Hey everybody, welcome back. Today's video is something a little bit different. Rather than cooking anything, I thought that I might take you on a quick tour of the vegetables that we've planted in our garden this year, see what we've got growing. My plan is to then make an update to this video every 3 to 4 weeks so that I can document the progress. And then at the end, I'll make a couple of videos that show the harvesting of all the various crops, as well as the canning and preserving of things like tomatoes and pickles. So here we go. Yeah, this is the garden tour for June 2025. Now, I'm just getting this video published. It's the 7th of July here, but this was all filmed June 22nd. And most of this stuff was planted around May 15th through to May 25th, roughly. So these are the beds at the side of our house facing southwest. These two big beds here are almost all San Marzano Roma tomatoes. I think there are 12 or 13 of them here in these two beds. And these will all be used for canning when they're done. However, at the back of this first bed, there are 3 eating tomatoes. There's a Castellano Genovese, a purple Cherokee, which is one of my favorites, and a Tigerella, which we haven't grown before. There's also a Midnight Roma here, which I've never grown either, and it's supposed to be delicious in pasta sauces and things like that. There are also a few carrots in here that are trying to do something, but I should really thin these out if they're going to make decent carrots. There's more Roma tomatoes, and then at the very end here there's a cherry tomato. I think this is called a Super Sweet 100 or something like that. It should make tons of tiny little cherry tomatoes. Now on the other side here we've got some herbs. This year I've added some shade cloth to this bed. The past couple of years things have seemed to wither and dry a little bit over in this corner, so I thought it was maybe just a little bit too hot. So we'll see if this shade cloth helps. So far everything's looking pretty green in here, so that's a definite improvement over last year. Here there's 3 to 4 kinds of sweet basil, as well as some Thai basil. There's also some cilantro and parsley here, chives, oregano, some sage, and then a big patch of dill, which will be used for canning pickles. Then moving on further down, this year we're trying something new. This is celeriac, which is a root vegetable. I think it's of the celery family. It kind of tastes like celery. You cook it like a potato, and then it has sort of like a mashed potato celery kind of combo flavor. It mashes really well. Anyway, further on down here, there's some bush beans growing, and then a big clump of both romaine lettuce and leaf lettuce. It's sort of like a butter leaf lettuce. And then at this end, there are a few different peppers growing. The couple of larger plants here we bought at a nursery, and then all these smaller ones we grew from seeds. So we'll see how they come along. There's a mixture of sweet and hot peppers in here, and they've all somehow gotten mixed up, so I have absolutely no idea which ones are which until they grow. So then over here there are a couple of Saskatoon berry bushes. I think these are maybe also called service berries in some areas. They're sort of like a tart blueberry. They make really great pies and jams. We planted these as small bushes just a couple of years ago, and this is the first year that they're actually making some fruit, so that's encouraging to see. I think they can grow to be about 8 feet tall eventually. And there's also a little bit more lettuce coming in here. 4 more Roma tomatoes, so I think that's 17 we're up to now. There's some red kale in here. And then some miner's lettuce, which is getting feasted on by something. I don't know what exactly, but it seems to only be eating the miner's lettuce here, so I'll concede that to the bugs if it keeps them off everything else. And finally, there's some thyme here that volunteered to live in this corner a couple of years ago, and I've just left it alone. And then another Saskatoon berry here at the other end. Now moving into the backyard, there's a thornless blackberry bush here, which I took as a clipping from my next door neighbor, and it's finally making berries here for the first time, so that's exciting. Then we have a big clump of raspberries. For next year, I'm definitely going to build a trellis system for these to grow up, but for this year, they're just kind of going everywhere all over the ground. And then we have a couple of blueberry bushes here that went in last year, so they'll need a couple of more years before they start to produce anything. And And then these two are honeyberry bushes, which are similar to blueberries, but they kind of grow in an oblong shaped berry, which is really interesting. Anyway, hoping they make some fruit later this year. And then we're into the back garden here. So there are 2 grapevines. These are Concord grapes that are really good for juice or for jelly. And by September, these will just be thick with grapes. And then this bed is all pickling cucumbers. I can't actually remember the variety that we planted, but they were specifically recommended as good for pickling. Then there's a yellow pear tomato, which is a family favorite. Makes just loads of little tiny pear-shaped yellow tomatoes. Next to that is, I don't know what. This was a plant that we saw on a half-price table at the nursery, and I asked somebody what it was, and they didn't know themselves, and so they gave it to us for free. So it might be a sunflower, I don't know. We'll have to see. Then we have a few green peas growing here. These are the type that you can eat the pod as well if you pick them young. Only 3 of them seem to sprout, so I'm just going to stick a few more seeds in the ground here and see if I can't get a few more to come up. And then we have 6 more Roma tomatoes. I think these are the last of them, so that's a grand total of 23 Romas growing this year. We'll have to see how many jars of tomato sauce that gets us at the end of the summer. Now this bed has an awful lot of weeds growing in it, which I should deal with, I guess, but these are all onions at the one end, and then garlic at the other end, as well as some rhubarb. In this bed there are French radishes, which are pretty much ready to be picked, as well as kidney beans, which is a new crop for us this year. I'm interested to see how these come along and whether we get a lot of beans or even enough to make one batch of chili. I have no idea how much this is going to grow, so we'll see. And then this final bed at the back here are all squashes. So there's a yellow and a couple of green zucchinis. There's 2 kinds of winter squashes in here, and then a whole bunch of butternut squash that should probably have gone in the ground a little earlier, but we'll see how far they can come along. And once they get going, they can grow out of control pretty quickly, so we'll see. And then also in the back garden here is this apple tree, which wasn't really making very much fruit when we first moved into this house, but a couple of years ago we gave it a really aggressive pruning. Now it seems to have really come back and taken off, and there are just hundreds of apples growing on it this year, so it's feeling a lot better about itself, I guess. And then the final thing that's back here is this tayberry plant, which is a cross between a blackberry and a raspberry, I believe. They are absolutely delicious, but they don't keep at all once they're picked, so there's no sort of commercial market for them, unfortunately. So that's it. That's the garden tour for June. Now, if you enjoyed this video or you found it useful, please do hit the like button. And as this is a new channel, I would very much appreciate you subscribing so I can keep bringing you more videos. Thanks, we'll talk soon.